From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Speaking with the Enemy.
Just over 30 minutes remaining before kickoff between the Tiger Cats and Alouettes at Tim Hortons Field on the Journey Rewards Tiger Cats pregame show. I'm Bubba O'Neill. This is Andy Fantuz, and it's time for our Speaking with the Enemy segment, courtesy of Red Tag. It's Christmas in July, folks. Visit redtag.ca to secure your spot on the beach for your fall or winter vacation with amazing deals right now. Now, with us in the booth from TSN Montreal 690, Sean Campbell. Sean, thanks for checking in.
No problem. Big game tonight.
Yeah, it is a big one. You know what? He's now 1-1 as a head coach. Has there been a Danny Machocha effect? And you know what? I'll throw it to you immediately. Is there any fear that former head coach and Ticats consultant Kahari Jones could expose some weaknesses in the Alouettes club?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting little tidbit to keep an eye on. Actually, just saw Kahari coming in. I hopped in my Uber, looked in. There's Kahari waiting in his car to come to the game. So I'm curious how much input he's had, and I'm sure the Hamilton Ticats want to get as much information that they want. The play calling has been a little bit different with Anthony Calvillo calling the plays now. The offense hasn't been completely turned around, and you know that Kahari knows these players very well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The Danny Machocha effect that you were talking about, I think we've seen a more aggressive Alouettes offense, and maybe that's an Anthony Calvillo thing too, now that he's calling the plays. But we've seen them go for it on third down a little bit more. They've had the onside kick. They really want to push the envelope more so than maybe Kahari was doing before.
From a player's perspective, I would think that if your coach, your boss, kind of gets let go early in the season, you might take that a little bit personally. You think that they have an edge to them because of that fact. It's kind of a unique dynamic having a turnaround when really the season was still up for grabs, especially in the East. But do you think that the players would take that to heart because they weren't doing their job, but so their boss kind of got let go?
Yeah, it's very possible that the players think that way. I think the players also realize that their record wasn't as good as they think that they should be, and I think it's the same thing. You could look in the entire division in the East, from the Red Blacks, who are still looking for that first win. Here in Hamilton, 1 win for the Hamilton Ticats, 2 for the Alouettes. Maybe the Argos are where they need to be or where they thought they were going to be, but I think a lot of teams feel that way, and the change was probably a little bit of a shock. Oh, okay, yeah, we should be better. And I think for the players, the change was really about discipline. And under Kahari Jones, a lot was let go, and it was talk about players being maybe a little bit late to a meeting or the discipline on the field, the extra 15 yards after the play was concluded. The penalties the next week, the first week with Danny Machocha, were still high, but they were football penalties. So that's what they took. They were a little bit lower again last week against the Ottawa Red Blacks. So I think Danny Machocha wanted to really instill a discipline. And for the players at practice, from what I heard, that a lot of these players felt they had to prove themselves to somebody new. They're proving themselves to their general manager, who's now the head coach, but they felt that they had to prove themselves again, which I think that's where their mindset is.
Was the change at the head coach inevitable when Danny Machocha came in? Was the leash so short that it was bound to happen sooner or later, or was this not the case?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Because the moment Danny Machocha was hired, it was like, oh, well, who's he going to bring in as his head coach? When's he going to call Noel Thorpe? You know that relationship is strong, and it's been there. And
you want to have your guys, right? When you come in as a GM, you want to have your guys, and because at the end of the day, you're responsible for the success of the team, so it makes sense, right?
Yeah, and Kahari was there already, but Kahari was doing well. And then when Danny came in, he did well again. And I don't think that there's really any animosity between Danny Machocha and Kahari Jones. Just Danny Machocha saw it was his last year of his contract. The team was underperforming. It's a perfect way. If I'm going to make the change, let's do it at the bye week. Danny Machocha is a football coach at heart. This is completely different. I've said this before. Jim Popp used to come down as the GM and then become the head coach. He was a manager of football coaches. He was not a coach. Danny Machocha is a football coach. I've sat down and talked. He is a football coach in his heart. And, yes, he does some general managing. So I think it was a little bit easier when he's watching football games going, well, I would do this, I would do that. All right. He goes, the owner, can I make this move? So, yeah, maybe it was going to happen all the time, but I think Kahari Jones proved a lot with what he could do with the Alouettes. And you saw it was a week later. He got picked up by the Ticats. If there's a coaching availability, I was listening on the way home from the Red Blacks game back from Montreal. We drove back, and I was listening to a little bit of, the Red Blacks radio. And they were talking about, well, if we get rid of Paul LaPolice, we should call Kahari Jones. I think any opening now, teams will call Kahari Jones. That's how much he's proved himself with the Alouettes.
When you take a look at that offense, and normally when you lose a guy like William Stanback, there's certainly a lot of doom and gloom in terms of that position, but that certainly has not been the case this year.
It's different. Antui's done a solid job. He's got a lot of yards, but he's had 2 huge runs, a 79-yard run and a 59-yard run. And he didn't get the start a couple weeks ago with Walter Fletcher coming in, who's been pretty good. Different kind of running backs, both of them. Where the running game has changed without Will Stanback, and is that third quarter. If the Owls were within a 7-point score of the opposition, if they were leading or trailing, they would never abandon the run with Stanback in the third quarter. How many teams abandon the run so early in a football game because they're trailing? Even when the Owls had the lead, you have the run game, Stanback, 6 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards, 4 yards, 8 yards. There's your drive, and there's 4.5 minutes. They don't have that anymore with Antwi and Fletcher. They try, and then it fails, and then they start passing. You saw how often Trevor Harris passed last week. So I think that's the biggest problem not having Stanback is in the third and early fourth quarter, relying on that run game to kill the clock or to take control of a game.
Well, that's a great point, Sean. Stanback's one key injury, and there's a few others on the team, Chris Aki, notably. What right now, where the Montreal Alouettes are, where is their strengths on that team, and where would you say are rooms for improvement or their weaknesses?
Well, I think that you mentioned Chris Aki. Not that they haven't been doing a good job. Brian Haralamana came in. Now you're going to see Tyrese Beverette. He's kind of been at the will, the sand, the middle. He's been all over the place. He'll get the start today. Tyrell Richards, the rookie, he just got put on the 6th game, and he was filling in. So, yeah, it's been a rough start injury-wise at the linebacking core. And it's not that they haven't done a good job filling the void, but in this game you need experienced linebackers. So they just got a Darius Pickett. That's going to help them at that position. But as their strength goes, and you probably want to see it, improve, is their receiving core. Their receiving core is strong. You look at these players, but it still needs to be better. I was looking at 47 targets for Eugene Lewis, but he doesn't have 30 catches yet. That's, he gets targeted. Reggie White Jr. has been really solid. Jake Winicke's targets and catches are way down. He was bothered with an injury for the first couple of weeks. It seems that last week it was his first real stride, second down catches. But if you have Winicke, White Jr., and I think that you have Eugene Lewis, I think that those are your strengths, but they need to be a little bit better. Mayala and Philpott have done a really good job too.
You always hold yourself to a high standard, and Eugene Lewis is one of those stars in this league that's kind of been flying under the radar, yet could potentially be an all-star in this league. So, I'm sure he wants to pick it up as well. What is the Alouettes worried about? What are they worried about with the Ticats going into this game? Huge divisional game. Really gonna. If the Alouettes win, they got a 4-point lead on the Cats. Opposite way, it's tied in the standings. What are they worried about with the Cats?
I don't know. You have to tell me, because usually it's the Ticats. You got to worry about the quarterback play or getting to the quarterback. They have 10 sacks this year. Their sack numbers are down. Their run game's down. This is not Ticats that I'm used to watching, but I think it's probably the offense. I think Dane Evans, I've always liked him. I feel that he's kind of had a little bit of a roller coaster season so far. I'm sure everybody in Hamilton agrees. But it's probably the battle between the receivers and the DBs. The Owls, DBs, they've been caught in pass interferences. They've been caught leaving guys open, so that might be something to keep an eye on.
One last quick one here. I know a little bumpy last week with Chandler Worley, but 2 return games that have been outstanding for the most part this season, and the Cats and the Alouettes. Do you think that'll play a difference in who wins that battle tonight?
I think the special teams for the Owls have kept them in games, because Chandler Worthy has been outstanding. And it was just one of those games. And I think that's what the Owls special teams coordinator Byron Archambault kind of said. we trust them. We're going to stay with them. We're not going to make any drastic changes. So the special teams game has been very solid. Their kicking game's been good. Their punting game, their punt coverage, and their return game. Their return game last game did not step up, but the offense did, so they were fine.
We have been speaking with the enemy as presented by Red Tag. He is Sean Campbell from TSN Montreal 690. Have a great call tonight.
Thank you very much.
Up next, Tiger Cats Wall of Fame safety Rob Hitchcock is on deck. You are listening to the Journey Rewards Tiger Cats pregame on the Ticats Audio Network.